Hello, this is Scarlet and Rage podcast. Thank you for taking time to listen to us today. We have got several topics that we're going to be going over, I think will be of interest to Ohio State football fans. We're going to talk a little bit about Ohio high school football. Unfortunately, that news is not positive after this past weekend with the number one team in Ohio, Cincinnati Moeller, falling uh, in Ironton, Ohio on Saturday. And so, also going to switch gears and get into a little bit of a Buckeye preview. We get to see this big, fast, talented, seemingly motivated team take the field again against Marshall. And of course, I am expecting, I'm sure Rage is expecting, and I would be willing to bet that all of you are expecting that the Buckeyes are going to shred them to pieces in wonderful fashion. So that's what we've got to look forward to episode-wise. Hope you guys had a great weekend as we're winding up our weekend here. You'll be getting this on Monday morning. Rage, did you have a super weekend?
I like how you led into that, Michael. I did have a super weekend. My parents were in town, had a lot of fun. They were able to visit my son, watch a lot of college football. And my shirt, I know you were like leading to like asking if I had a super weekend based on my shirt, but I just got done watching. I mean, my wife and I were kind of going back and watching the old DCEU movies that started in 2013 with Man of Steel in the last couple weeks, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, just finished Zack Snyder's Justice League. Have you seen any of those, Michael? Any of those movies, by the way?
I have seen all of those, Jay. All of them.
Is that sarcasm?
No, I've seen all of them. Now most of them I've only seen like one time, but I've seen all of them at least once.
Okay. Yeah, man. Just watching that movie again and knowing that like the series is over after Zack Snyder's Justice League just brings a tear to my eye. And I fought hard in a part of the geek community, man, to try and revive that movie series. I watch YouTube videos on it all the time, and all we want, man, is for Zack Snyder to finish his work and have a Justice League 2 and then Justice League 3 or whatever he was planning to do, man. Have a movie where Superman turns over to literally Darkseid and rules the earth, and then they change it over. Did you know that was going to happen, by the way?
Well, was that kind of like a callback to the old Christopher Reeve Superman, where he became dark in one episode and was like a bad guy? He was like a menace to society. Do you remember that?
No, it wasn't a callback to that. It was completely different. But
completely different.
Yeah, they were actually going to make Justice League 2 more of like a horror movie, from what I understand. They were going to make Superman obviously succumb to the anti-life equation, be controlled by Darkseid, have, the Superman would help Darkseid take over the world, and the Justice League was going to fight to try and reverse time, I guess, go back in time and make sure that didn't happen, which I don't know. I've heard rumors, stories. I don't know, because that was actually written before the Avengers. I don't know if you happen to have seen Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame.
Yep, seen them both.
Okay, well, you know how in Avengers Endgame they had to go back in time to stop Thanos, right?
Right.
Well, I don't know. There are rumors that storyline was kind of stolen from Zack Snyder. They got wind of that's what he was planning to do, and they decided to do something similar. I don't know. I don't know how true that is, man. I've just heard that.
If there is truth to that, that's big time then, because that altered both of those franchises greatly.
What altered the franchises is that Zack Snyder was just given a short stick, and unfortunately, James Gunn sucks, and he's just not a fit for the DC universe and his movies, man. But anywho, on to another
side. Dying, Jay. DC has been fledgling and dying in recent years, much like Ohio high school football in 2024 is kind of flailing and somewhat dying here in the early phase of the season, not looking not looking like we would like them to look with the big matchup of Cincinnati Moeller this weekend. Now, Jay, their opponent is from down around your neck of the woods, are they not?
They are Mallard Creek High School, the Mallard Creek Mavericks. They actually used to be the power in North Carolina when I first moved here in 2013. They're not what they used to be. They're still a good program, very good program, usually top 5 in North Carolina every year, but they're not what they were. I mean, one name that comes to mind right off the bat, Jordan Davis, the former Georgia Bulldog defensive tackle, now Philadelphia Eagle. That's a big name. They've had a lot of other guys that have made it to the NFL and stuff, but this is not the same Mallard Creek team from back then that Moeller played yesterday. To start it off, Michael, I think let's just not hold anything back. Ohio football is just in a terrible place. Our best teams this season have all lost to teams outside of the state. The game, that comes to mind that's most understanding is Massillon losing to Bergen Catholic, but even then, getting beat as bad as they did at home is a red flag. And this is Massillon. Massillon went undefeated last season, beating Hoban, beating St. Ed's, beating a pretty good schedule. They were the number 1 team in the state last year. Now, that's debatable. They would have played St. Ed's on a neutral field. But the fact of the matter is, their first loss in a while comes to a team from outside of the state, and they got clobbered.
Yeah. What was the score to that, Jay?
I believe it was 27-14. I don't know. It was somewhere along those lines, like 27-14. I guess clobbered is the wrong word. Beat decisively is the right word.
Yeah.
Right phrase.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Well,
Go ahead.
This Moeller game did not go a whole lot better. A close game. I mean, 21-14. It's not like they got blown out or anything like that, but clearly got bested. Came out early looking strong on defense, and then just struggled there for a little bit, and ultimately was not able to get enough offense going, and went 21-14 the bad guys. And you are really down on the athleticism of this team, considering that it is right now, heading into last week, ranked the number 1 team in Ohio. You're very down on the athleticism. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Well, Michael, I actually found a replay of the game on YouTube. I sent it over to you. I listened to the game on the radio, and let me just say the Moeller announcers are god awful. I had no fucking clue what was going on for most of the game. Shame on them. Now, granted, they could be doing that pro bono, and that's fine. But at the same time, I just didn't know what was going on most of the time. So, anywho, I was able to find a YouTube video of it. I didn't watch the entire game, but I did watch spots of it. And the biggest thing that sticks out is how slow Moeller is at the skill positions. The sad thing is they can get away with the lack of speed playing inside of Ohio, but against teams in the South or teams that can run, that personnel just isn't going to cut it. Like Moeller could not get open against Mallard Creek. They really couldn't hit the edge. I believe one of their first touchdowns came off like a broken play. Their first drive of the game, they're running a fake punt. They don't score on it. Mallard Creek actually had a couple chances to score and probably win the game decisively in regulation, but they just missed guys deep. Just a pitiful display. And again, I say that Mallard Creek is no longer a top 5 team in the state of North Carolina. Like I believe teams like Providence Day and Weddington and Huff in recent years have gotten better. And man, this is optically, we'll see what ends up happening with them, Mallard Creek and Moeller here. But optically, Michael, this is just god awful. You go to a North Carolina prep message board, they're saying this is the best win a team in North Carolina has had outside of the state, probably in the history. And it comes against a team from Ohio. Shame on Moeller, man. Shame on Moeller. Shame on the state of Ohio. 2 other games that were egregious, by the way. I don't want to just, leave.
Jay,
Go ahead.
Before we move on, Moeller, I do have, I'm not super connected into Moeller by any means, but I do have some connections to families who are somewhat to relatively connected in the Moeller community. And I know that it is been a little bit of a buzz that some of the players that Moeller was accustomed to getting out of Cincinnati have been going to Winton Woods instead of, where in years past those same players would come to Moeller. And now Winton Woods is kind of like a public school option that also plays really good football without all of the, kind of the rules and disciplines that Moeller, you have to go through. And so there, I think there has been a little bit of struggle with their recruiting with some of that talent staying over in Winton Woods. And they're going to have to figure out a way, one way or the other, to get more speed out on the field, in the years to come, if they want to remain, a top contender in high school football.
How good is Winton Woods this year? I know how good they've been in the past, but how good are they this year? They're
good. They're good all the way around. I mean, they play good defense. They do have some weapons on offense. They're very, they have a lot of very explosive plays in their games. They beat Kings High here locally 19-3, and basically it was on 3 explosive plays. And then obviously they shut their defense was big and athletic and shut their offense down to practically nothing. So I mean, they're a very good team. How good are they? I don't know. But I know this: if you put a couple of those players over on Moeller, it would have made probably a pretty big difference out there the other day.
Yeah, well, that goes into the point, and I was going to get to that later. The state of Ohio should be deep enough for a team like Winton Woods to be great and Moeller to be great, and still beat the teams out of state. That's where I want Ohio to be. I don't want like a couple teams being great. I want like 5 to 10 teams being able to go out of state and probably compete/beat any team in the country. 2 other games that come to mind. Hoban lost their first game of the season. Now it's looking like that team is like the best team in Maryland. They're a top 25 team in the country. But again, like Hoban, you're a top 4 team in Ohio. You're at home. I expect you to win that game, and to lose at home by 2 touchdowns that's kind of egregious. And the one that is probably the worst of them all, Michael, and I even texted you about this, was St. Edwards, the defending back-to-back champions. Now, granted, they lost a lot of players. Back-to-back champions from Division I Ohio, losing at home to Boyle County, Kentucky. Bumfuck nowhere, Kentucky. This isn't even in an urban area. This is fucking Boyle County, whatever that is, wherever that is. You look on a map, there isn't much nearby. Michael, you're the Kentucky expert, man. Do you know anything about them?
Look, I know more about Cleveland football and St. Ed's than I do about Kentucky. Kentucky is not known to have good high school football at all. It's known to have extremely weak high school football. And so that is absolutely an egregious loss by St. Ed's. And, St. Ed's is, I remember when I started jujitsu, Jay, when I was a white belt, I've been training maybe like 6 months, and there'd be these guys come in there. And so they'd be, people would say like, well, they were wrestlers at St. Ed's. And like, those guys were monsters to deal with. St. Ed's produces, tough, hard-nosed athletes, but something is off, because you should be able to recruit, being the premier basically football program in the Cleveland area. They've overtaken Ignatius. And so you should be able to put together a squad that goes and beats anybody in Kentucky. You should win the Kentucky State Championship every year when you can recruit Cleveland. And so that's an awful loss for an Ohio team.
I didn't watch St. Ed's in Boyle County. I believe it was actually shown online somewhere. I didn't get to see it, but I did see highlights, and there was a speed difference from the highlights that I saw. Boyle County had some black player that was faster than anyone on Ed's team. I wasn't even sure if he played running back, quarterback. It doesn't matter. He scored like 2 long touchdowns, had an interception. He's, you look at him on the composite, he's like a 3-star player. He's going to play somewhere in Division I.
Jay, St. Ed's is not like out in the suburbs. I mean, St. Ed's is close to a high black population. There's a lot of athletes that are not that far from St. Ed's that they can go recruit to supplement the big white Catholic boys. But I mean, I guess maybe they haven't done it the last few years, or maybe they don't do it at all. I don't know. But I mean, that's definitely something that I think that they need. I had a good friend who was a college football coach, and he was ex-college football player as well, and he played in Texas. And he said, all the good teams, and he was a black guy. He said all the good teams, he said they had a mix of good white athletes and then the black speed. He said because when there was like several white guys on the team, he said there was always that discipline, because it was usually a school that hired a coach that would instill discipline and all that kind of stuff. And he said that the all black teams that didn't have the kind of coaching or the discipline, it would just fall apart. And so that's kind of been what the Cincinnati Cincinnati Moeller has tried to be, and the some of the other Catholic schools, a blend of both. But it seems like we're lacking on the speed front in Ohio, in the upper echelon Ohio football right now.
Did you ever see The Longest Yard with Adam Sandler?
Yes.
Okay. Did you like the movie? It didn't seem like you did.
No, I did like the movie. But I when you were, I wasn't expecting that one, so I had to think on that for a minute. So Longest
Okay,
Yard,
well,
yeah.
the whole point of that is everything you just said reminded me of that movie, and Michael Irving was in the movie, remember?
Yeah.
Michael Irving made a point to Adam Sandler. It's like, Adam, you're getting all these big, strong dudes, but you need the black guys.
Yeah.
Basically, he had to get the black athletes on his side to beat the prison guards because they didn't have speed at the skill positions.
Right.
It's not rocket science. Black people are faster than white people for the most part. It's just
Yeah.
that is the truth, everyone. And people have said it time and time again. It's just the fact of the matter. You need black players at the skill position groups. It's just the way it is, man. Michael Irving said it in The Longest Yard. Go back and look.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. It really sucks, but big speed difference there. Big speed difference between Moeller and Mallard Creek. Mallard Creek would have won that game decisively if they're more well coached. And tying this together to Ohio State, I used to think Ohio was getting screwed on the national rankings, Michael, with our recruits being underranked.
Yeah.
Maybe the lack of spring ball, 7-on-7, not participating in those. But no, I would say the national rankings are correct. Ohio isn't what it was. The state doesn't intimidate other teams from other states. They lose on the biggest stage. These players aren't as good as other places. If they were, they would win more of these games. So how does this affect Ohio State, though? Because let's tie this into Ohio State now. Well, It makes recruiting that much harder. It's easier to build a consistent power when you have players closer to home and not have to go into places like Georgia, like Florida, like Alabama now. Yeah. Ohio State shouldn't need to go into these places to get these guys. The roster should be 80% Ohio kids, but now it's what, 50%? I'm not sure. It might be less.
No, I think it's less than that. I mean, I think 50% would be optimal. I mean, I think if you could have a class of 20, I mean, if you could have a class of 25 guys and 12 of them are from Ohio and they're of Ohio State caliber, I think that would be amazing. That would be almost like Georgia level, talent coming out. But I mean, if I'm a little bit more optimistic than you, Jay, because I know that I was here when Ohio high school football took a nosedive. I saw it with my own eyes. I was in Cleveland at that time. And so, they couldn't play football. Kids got off track. Guys didn't play for a year. Guys quit. The number of scholarship athletes coming out of Ohio after COVID dropped precipitously from its pre-COVID levels. And it has in last year and then again in this year. it is getting back up to those pre-COVID levels, at least in terms of number of Division I athletes signed out of the state of Ohio. So I'm hopeful that in the the next 2-3 cycles to come, that the talent could step up and improve some as the state gets back on track with its football programs.
I guess it starts to do. We could do like a political analysis on why Ohio isn't what it was in football. Economically, it just needs to get back. Places like, Columbus is doing a good job, but a friend of mine made a point like, yeah, Columbus is bringing in a lot of people to like, cushy jobs and stuff, but it's not that blue collar stuff. Those aren't the people playing
Right.
football.
Right.
I'm looking at Ohio State's class right now for the class of 2025. 26 guys committed, 8 players are from Ohio. Back in the day, there were 14 or 15 of those guys from the state of Ohio. Now we only have 8.
Well, but speaking of Ohio recruiting, Jay, that like you touched on that, and that's important. The lifeblood of recruiting is numbers. And so if your state is not growing and the numbers are staying relatively stagnant, then the prospect pool is staying relatively stagnant. But so you need your state to be growing. And, Columbus, I think, has a lot of growth to come. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of cushy jobs in that, but there'll be some, more grunt work jobs in those, chip factories and places that are going to be opening up through there. And so that's a positive. That's going to be bringing thousands of people into the state, or it could be keeping people from the northeastern part of the state from leaving the state and going down south somewhere. So, all that is needed. We need Ohio to grow. I'm not a huge Mike DeWine fan, if we're going to get into politics. But I'm hopeful that things are going to improve and that they're on the upswing.
All we can do is hope, man. Vote for the right people in office and stuff. Attract people to the state that's gonna bring in jobs, and I guess jobs to the elite athletes. Man, I don't really know what to say, but I can tell you this, Michael. I think I made mention of this on a previous episode. Ohio State's starting 11 on offense, one guy is from the state starting in the 11. That's crazy, man. On defense, you have 3, I think 3.
Yeah.
And that's still a low number. Usually it's like 6, but now it's like 3. It's like, wow, man. Wow.
And Jay, being in 2024, I'm not really as surprised by that because Ohio went from consistently producing in the 115 to 130 range of Division I football players every year down to like the upper 60s. It fell off massively, and the state was just kind of in disarray because they weren't allowed to play football for a whole year. The kids weren't in school for a whole year. It was a disaster. And so it's no surprise to me that there wasn't too many Ohio State caliber football players being produced within the state during those years.
Yeah, no, you make a good point there. That is an absolute great point. Dude, Toledo Central Catholic, the best team, like one of the best teams in the state of Ohio, their only loss in a couple of years came to a team from Detroit. Sneaky enough, like teams in Michigan are beating teams in Ohio more often.
There's some talent in Detroit. Ohio State has to go after everything nearby. If there's a high 4-star in Detroit, you've got to go. You've got to be going into Detroit. You've got to be going into Pennsylvania. You've got to be going into Indiana. You've got to be owning that Midwest country through there because you are the premier program across there.
For sure, man. Man, you remember back in the day when they used to have like the Kirk Herbstreit Classic in like the mid 2000s and up to about like 2011. Remember that? Kirk Herbstreit had those games.
Yeah.
We are so far removed from them. That was back when Ohio was really punching. Like Ohio was in the conversation back then with Florida, with Texas, with California. Georgia wasn't there. They were not included in those conversations back in like 2006, 2007.
back in those days, you had Ohio and Pennsylvania in the top 5. Ohio was 4 and Pennsylvania was 5. And Georgia was like 6 or 7.
And the Big 33 game was like the greatest all-star game, post high school football all-star game in the country. That
Yep.
was like so much fun to watch. The best in Pennsylvania versus the best in Ohio. But now with NIL, early enrollment, Ohio and Pennsylvania both sucking, it's been discontinued. I know it was more of like a Pennsylvania thing and they took more pride in that than Ohio. But at the same time, I'm not even sure if that's even going on anymore. And even if it did, nobody would care because both states suck.
Well,
Like,
and I
let's
mean,
be real, both states suck.
and I mean, here's the thing, Jay. Like, if I'm one of the top players in Ohio or Pennsylvania, because I mean, both states still have some obviously very highly rated guys in the top 150. If I'm one of those top 150 guys, and schools are talking to me about giving me $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 to come to school next year, and I'm looking at going to play a meaningless all-star game and going, I mean, I could shred my ACL. I could, hurt myself going into my freshman year and get behind the 8 ball. So I don't blame the kids for not doing it. Some of these, the players that you would really want to see in there doing it. But I mean, it stinks because, we're never going to get probably that you're talking about. Like, those days are probably just gone forever.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's a problem everywhere, though. Basically, kids afraid to play football,
Yeah.
parents not let. I think that's not just a problem in Ohio; it's a problem everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we've dealt with it with my son's 5th grade team. I have kind of pushed that we've got to toughen them up. Like, they're going to play football, like we've got to toughen them up. They're not very tough right now, and that was kind of resisted, and we got smacked around a couple of times, and we're doing it. We're having them hit, and they played better this week. They won the game. It wasn't one of the best teams we've played, but they went out and they played tough and they won the game. Like, football, you got to be tough. You got to hit. There's a chance you're going to get injured. That's what you accept when you accept the life of a football player.
Yeah, closing out Ohio high school football before we move a little bit into Ohio State. There was a demographic done a while back, and it kind of opened up my eyes. But do you know where most of the black population lives in the United States, Michael?
Yes, I do, Jay. In the Southeast.
Yeah, like there was like a map done for like where the white population is, Asian, Hispanic, black, and like the black population, it was really like darkened, like whatever color they chose. It was in the southeast, and it really like opened my eyes. I thought there was like a big time black presence in Cleveland, in Cincinnati, but no, nothing compared to the southeast.
Well, there is, Jay, in those areas, but the big difference is in the South, in Mississippi and in Arkansas and in Louisiana. You've got a lot of blacks in the rural parts of the state, and you don't have that in the North. The rural parts of the state are all white.
Was it you who told me a story that you were like somewhere? I don't know if it's you or somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody was like filling up gas and they heard like this country guy just talking like randomly out in the middle of nowhere, just like right behind him, just talking, "Hey man, I'm, whatever," like just real country accent.
Yeah.
The person turns around and it's a black dude. They thought it was like some old white guy, but it was a black dude talking all country like that. Yeah,
Right.
like black people are in, like, back when I played high school football in Virginia, played a team called Chatham. And like I remember people were saying like, "Oh, it's Chatham. They're some country team." No, they were really fast and really big and just really, really good. Probably the best high
Yeah.
school team I played against my entire time in high school.
Well, I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, white people from the South are quite a bit different than white people from the North, and black people from the South are quite a bit different than black people from the North. It just
I
kinda
know, man.
that's
We
just
should do.
regionally,
do.
you just kind of take on a certain personality, and that personality is a bit different in the South. Uh, with the South and the Midwest, even though there's a lot of similarities, Jay. There's a lot of similarities between the South and the Midwest.
Oh man, I tell you what, we need to like have an episode on like just culture or something, like culture in the South, culture in the
The
Midwest,
culture of
completely off topic.
the culture of college football.
Culture, just yeah, how they treat it, I guess where I live and versus where in Ohio. Although I would say culturally, college football in Ohio is similar to the Southeast, but Ohio
Yeah,
is really the only state that treats
it,
it like that.
it is. And now that Ohio State has added some teeth to its NIL, I would say that you could say that Ohio State is essentially running like a SEC team in the Midwest, out of the Midwest.
Oh, they absolutely are
Yeah.
operating like an SEC team, but as we just said, and for like the past 30 minutes, Ohio State is just at a demographic disadvantage, a seven on, just preparation for these players disadvantage. Ryan Day, hate on the guy for a lot of things. I don't think he's a very good coach, but he is a great recruiter. To be able to pull the classes he does to Ohio State, considering all the disadvantages he has demographically, that's very impressive. I have a lot of problems with Ryan Day. Recruiting is not one of them.
I like how he has very efficiently utilized the transfer portal to land some big talent. And so, the truth of the matter is, Jay, regardless of how difficult it will be to assemble national championship talent year in and year out at Ohio State, the truth is they have assembled national championship level talent in 2024. The question is, can they do it? Can they complete the chase as when Urban arrived and it was all about the chase? And I feel like Ryan Day has been chasing from the moment he started in Columbus, because the fan base was antsy for another national championship, because we really thought after Urban won one in his third year that we would get one more before Urban retired. That didn't happen. The fan base wanted that next one, and Day continued to not deliver. And now we're going into year 6, and this is his, I believe, most talented roster that he's ever had. And the two best coaches in college football retired or left for a job in the NFL after last year. This is the time. Georgia is good. They are not unbeatable. Alabama is good. They are not unbeatable. This is the time for Ryan Day to strike. And it starts this coming week in, against Marshall.
Yeah, Michael. Great job describing that there, man. Margin of error is very slim for Ohio State and Ryan Day, for all of those things. I mean, in the SEC, you have a wide, vast surface area of talent all around you. Ohio State, it's not the case. But Marshall Thundering Herd out of Huntington, West Virginia. Do a quick Marshall preview of the game. Did you ever see the movie We Are Marshall, Michael?
No, I never saw that. But
Yeah,
Jay,
pretty good movie.
the topic at hand is, this team is national championship caliber, and we need to see them continue to deliver week in and week out.
Yeah, well, we do. And that starts with Marshall.
Yeah.
So, anywho, interesting. Ohio State has actually only played them twice, and I've actually been to both games. Do you remember when those were?
One of them was like back in the 90s, wasn't it?
Nope, 2004 and 2010.
Okay, so close to the 90s.
2000, yeah, 2004. They actually Ohio State won on a Mike Nugent 52-yard field goal. Yeah, at the end of the game, I was there. It was kicked right at me. And then in 2010, they actually opened up with Marshall. That Ohio State team doesn't get talked about enough. Talk about a team that should have won a national championship that season. But they opened with Marshall on a Thursday night, blew them out like 45-7 or something like that. That was like the last year of Jim Tressel, last year of Terrell Pryor, last year of the group of all of those guys.
I'll say this, Jay, the Oregon Ducks gave Cam Newton and Auburn all they could take that year. And I think that Buckeye team was every bit as good, if not better, than the Oregon Ducks, except they had Terrell Pryor. And Terrell Pryor was uh, kind of an under talked about beast at Ohio State. I mean, the things he could do at times were pretty incredible.
Man, off topic, Terrell's prior discussion now. I would say he was Ohio State's greatest quarterback of all time. Not after Ohio State, but if I'm taking a quarterback for Ohio State, I'm taking Terrell Pryor.
That's high praise. Very high praise for Terrell Pryor. I tell you this, I would certainly take Terrell Pryor on Urban Meyer's teams. If he could have been the quarterback on those first few teams, that would have been unbelievable. Terrell Pryor running Meyer's offense.
Yeah, that would have been interesting for sure. Definitely with some spread option there. I mean, we'll never know. I mean, it's nice to think about. I don't think he would have put up much different stats than Braxton. Well, I would say he would be similar stats to Braxton Miller. I think Terrell Pryor was much, much better than Braxton, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it
I
would have
think
been
he,
similar productivity.
yeah, I think he'd be similar. I think I don't know. Yeah, 2,500 yards and 800 to 1,200 yards rushing. But I mean that's a pretty lethal combination. Because that's what moves the chains is that quarterback that can be that that key element. Now I know that it's changed, and we're not like the Urban Meyer days where you need to see a quarterback do that 15 to 17 times a game, but we need to see the quarterback be able to strategically do that 3 to 5 times a game. And I am bullish that Will Howard is a guy who can do exactly that. I don't know that you're quite sold that he's that guy yet, that he's the type of guy that can pick up 30, 40 yards rushing in a semifinal game to extend plays and extend drives. But I think that he is, or at least I'm beginning to think that he is. So we can segue into the Marshall discussion with Will Howard and what we're continuing to look for out of him.
Yeah, he needs to progress in the passing game. I mean, I've said it before. His passes are a little off. I mean, he's got the benefit of having receivers like Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Emeka Ibuka, Brandon Innes, who are usually have created great separation. And those passes that are wobbly and a little off, like those players are catching them because they've beaten the defender so bad. Lack of arm strength seems to be a problem for Will Howard, underthrowing Jeremiah Smith against Western Michigan. Yeah, he just needs to progress passing. But I've said it on the episode like I believe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. He's a fifth-year player. I mean, Brian Day, I think he's a good quarterback coach, but you kind of are what you are at this point. Will Howard is, between all of the best teams in college football, Will Howard, if you take the best teams in college football, Will Howard would probably be the weakest quarterback of the bunch. I mean, that's not a hot take. It's just the truth. That doesn't mean Ohio State still can't win a title with Will Howard, but the rest of the team has just got to be elite. I mean, Ohio State won a championship with Craig Krenzel, though. So if they can win a championship with Craig Krenzel, they can win a national championship with Will Howard.
Yeah, and obviously with Cardell Jones. So, yeah. I mean, I think you're right that Howard is not a dynamo that we can't expect Will Howard, but I do. I would like to see. I'll just tell you what I'd like to see out of Will Howard. We saw, a more efficient take, a more efficient game for him the other day. He didn't have the drops. But what I would like to see is I'd like to see him be able to stretch the ball downfield a little bit and come out of the game with 250 or 60 plus yards passing and show that he does have those passing chops that I do believe are going to be needed, because while you don't have to have a total dynamo at quarterback, you can't have a guy that can't stretch the defense at all. You have to have a guy who can stretch the defense a little bit, and that's one thing that I think we're still kind of waiting to see.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I agree. Breaking down Marshall a little bit. Their starting quarterback is a former Tulsa quarterback. Braylon Braxton's this guy's name. Now, granted, he didn't play in week 2 against Virginia Tech. I don't know what was going on there. He might have been hurt. Battling an injury, suspension. I don't know. I didn't really look a lot into it. They do have a burner at running back. This guy doesn't get a lot of carries, but he's broken off a lot of long runs, and he had like a 70-yard touchdown against Virginia Tech in week 2. Christian Fitzpatrick is a dude at wide receiver, 6'4", good length and hands. Had one of the best catches you'll ever see against Virginia Tech. Basically, he was running along the sideline. The pass was a little underthrown, and he reached back, Michael. He reached back with one hand and snagged it, and basically then stiff-armed the receiver. But then he just kind of went out of bounds. I feel like he could have cut it up, and I'm not saying he would have scored, but he would have picked up in like another 5-10 yards. It was an amazing catch. Probably one, maybe the best catch of the season so far. Will end up being one of the top 5 catches probably in between the NFL and NCAA for the rest of the season. And then to recap their defense is good. Like this is no longer Akron. This is no longer Western Michigan. Now, I'm not saying Ohio State's about to be in a mighty struggle here, but don't think it's going to be easy either. They only gave up 23 points at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech actually scored a touchdown off of, or I think 24 points. They scored a touchdown off a punt return, Beamer Bowl.
Only 17 points on offense.
No, it was 24 points on offense.
Oh,
because
okay.
they ended up scoring 31.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
yeah,
so
good defense,
but certainly shouldn't be a defense that the Buckeyes can't go out and score 45 against, 52 against.
If Ohio State can put up 52 points on Marshall, then I'll say, okay, we really have something on offense here, because Western Michigan, they're not any good. Akron, they were struggling with Colgate yesterday. And like I said, Akron is terrible. They got blown out by Rutgers, but basically the same where Ohio State did. They are not a better team than what people were trying to say. They're still Akron, and they're still terrible. So maybe Ohio State was just sleepwalking in that game. They kind of redeemed themselves against Western Michigan. But Marshall, like, they're a solid team, man. They're going to come ready. This is their Super Bowl. They're going to play the best. They're going to play their hardest all season. I'm not going to say they're going to play their best, but they are going to play the hardest, because you look at their roster, a lot of their players are from Ohio. I think they have more starters and they're starting 22 from Ohio than Ohio State does. Actually, I know they do.
And the guys that have aspirations to be an NFL draftee and or be a free agent, this is their opportunity to get out there and show what they can do amongst an elite level athlete. So they're going to be given it everything they got.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's it about Marshall. I expect it's going to be a struggle for longer than probably Akron was, but I believe Ohio State's going to win pretty comfortably in the end. It's not going to be as easy as Western Michigan. I think it's going to be a similar game probably to Akron was, if I were to guess.
I am making the call, Jay. I'm going Ohio State 52, Marshall 10.
I'll go Ohio State 45-10 over Marshall.
All right. So I'm taking them by another touchdown. I've got a little more confidence in the Buckeyes than Jay does. But I am feeling bullish about this team, Jay. I feel this team has the talent. This team has the ability, and this team does not have Ryan Day calling plays in the third and fourth quarters. So I am optimistic about the chances of this Buckeye team. But that's about a wrap for everything that I had. Am I missing something?
Nah, man, don't believe you're missing anything, man. We're just missing on Ohio football. That's all.
Yeah.
That's it. The state of Ohio, man.
Yeah.
Brings a tear to my eye.
It's got to pick it up. It'll get there, Jay. It's coming. It's on the rise.
Let's hope so. It needs to.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.